Hi! A couple of weeks ago, I did a call out for people to email me with their Anne Boleyn or Tudor tattoos, and it was wonderful to see the results. Thank you to those who contacted me and gave me permission to show their tattoos. If you missed it or you forgot to give me permission to use your photos, then please do email me and perhaps I can do a second video. My email is in the description. Let's get sharing that Tudor ink. Bill Wolff has just had his very first tattoo. It's on his inner right forearm. Bill explains that the symbols have multiple meanings. Besides the many Tudor French connections, the Fleur de Lis honours his paternal grandfather who was born in Alsace, where Wolff is quite common. Concerning the Tudor Rose, his maternal great-grandparents hailed from southeastern Wales, Bristol and Gloucester, and most certainly leaned Lancastrian. The D honours his lovely wife of 57 years. Oh. Our next one is Janet Clark. Janet explains that this is a tattoo that she came up with. She wanted to incorporate Anne Boleyn's status as a Tudor queen and also attempt to keep her individuality and strengths. So she included her bee necklace. Janet goes on to say that becoming queen changed Anne's life as well as history's, and including a king chess piece felt to her to be part of her story. Ashley Silveous got her Anne tattoo all the way back in August 2015 for her birthday. She's always loved English history and anything medieval or Renaissance, and a few years prior to getting her tattoo, she'd become very interested in learning about Anne Boleyn and the Tudors. She was so fascinated and moved by Anne's story. Anne was such an incredible woman, and Ashley dedicated herself to learning everything she could about her. She says my website really helped. Thank you, Ashley. Elizabeth Roberts asked her son Andrew, who she describes as quite an artist, to design her tattoo for her. It is his stylized version of a Tudor Rose. She got it 3 years ago when she was 54. She'd never had one before, but her 2 kids, aged 32 and 27, have several, as does her younger sister. She saw getting this tattoo as a way to celebrate surviving the pandemic and as a way to show her obsession with Tudor history. Elizabeth has been reading about the Tudors since she was about 10, and she was also a history teacher for over 20 years, so she wanted a tattoo that reflected those things. Elizabeth is still trying to decide what to get on her other arm. Anne and Elizabeth are her favourites. Her mother named her Elizabeth after Queen Elizabeth I. So maybe Elizabeth's signature, or Anne's. Melissa Bryson, who's a PhD student in Missouri, sent me this photo of her bee necklace tattoo. Tina Kurtis explains that Anne Boleyn's story has touched and inspired her for over 30 years. Several years ago, she had the idea of getting her first ever tattoo to be dedicated to Anne and the inspiration she's been able to draw from her. Tina wrote to me and says that I was kind enough to respond and share my thoughts and my own tattoo experience. I'm glad that was helpful, Tina. Tina goes on to say that being a fan of linguistics and mindfulness quotes, that she chose for tattoo number 1, Anne's most happy motto and her signature. Along the same lines, she chose her Book of Hours, Remember Me When You Do Pray, in an exact copy of her script for tattoo number 2. Tina says that she has a Book of Hours and loves the stories behind what Anne wrote in her 3 books, and that she had the fortune to see the quote on Anne Boleyn Day at Hever Castle. She says that when she looks at the script during difficult or troubling times, it has a centering effect and makes her think of the circumstances when Anne wrote in her Book of Hours, as well as her extensive life experiences and the parallels she can draw emotionally with her own. I do love how those words that Anne wrote so long ago can help people today. Julianne from Michigan, USA says that her tattoo is getting pretty faded because it's about 10 years old, but I think it still looks pretty. Beth von Staats explains that she has one Anne Boleyn themed tattoo, and that is Anne's signature. She also has a lovely Tudor Rose. Another is a very detailed Canterbury Cross with Cranmer's motto in Latin, "Know yourself and God." And yet another is a red dragon for Henry VII. Her son, Beth von Staats, is a tattoo artist, so Beth is a walking advertisement for him. Thanks, Beth. Nanci Cole explains that not only does she have Anne's badge, but she also has her signature and her motto, "The Most Happy." She says that her entire arm sleeve is Tudor related, including a portrait of Henry VIII. And here he is. Amy Cole explains that her tattoo is on the side of her hip and that it's Anne's quote from the Book of Hours. She says it's a bit faded now as it's very old. She got it when she was going through a really rubbish time and was starting to make it through. It reminds her of hope and having faith that all will be okay in the end. Erin de Cola got her Anne Boleyn tattoo back in 2012. She's been fascinated by Anne for years and has read and seen so much about her. She decided to get Anne's motto tattooed on her and added 3 little hearts at the end for her 3 kids. Heba has 2 Anne Boleyn tattoos. She explains that there's not much of an interesting story behind them and that she just loves Anne Boleyn and has done for ages and knew she wanted to get tattoos related to her. Gillian explains that she had to say goodbye last year to the family cat Bindi after 20 wonderful years. She got this bee on her wrist to honour her in the style of Anne Boleyn's necklace. I'm so sorry, Gillian, but what a lovely reminder of Bindi. Danielle explains that she's just finishing a sleeve that's dedicated to Anne Boleyn, and that's what she has so far on her inner arm and outer arm. I can't wait to see the end result. Ali Levine thinks that her tattoo is going to be incredibly controversial. She has Henry VIII's signature. She explains that she obsessed for years about why he had Anne Boleyn executed after such a famous or infamous love story turned tragedy. Ali would read his love letters to Anne over and over and over and anguish about how their love turned so poisonous. She spent years researching their complicated relationship and discovered a very broken Henry, a man who showed so much promise in his youth and really was a golden prince, who became a version of himself that his younger self wouldn't recognise or respect. A man who desired love and honour, but who banished and killed the ones he loved most, and had a reign notorious for evil and the undue execution of enemies. A man who changed the world for the woman he loved, but had her killed for a lie. A man who died alone, loveless and unhandsome, and who has a continuing 500-plus year reputation of being one of the worst kings in English history and one of the most evil men in the world. Things that would have horrified a young and ambitious Henry who so badly wanted to be a great king. Ali says that she could go on and on about her complicated feelings about Henry, but she knew that one day she wanted his signature tattooed in London after visiting the castles that he'd walked in. So during a trip to Europe, she made sure to schedule 2 very quick days in London to visit Hampton Court Palace and the Tower. After a few tears shed for Anne and her memory in the church at the Tower, she walked to her tattoo appointment and flew home the following morning. One day, she intends to visit Anne's famous places as well, and have her pearls and bee tattooed under Henry's name. Ali knows how it ended, but their love and death of love haunts her, and she chooses to remember them in a different light. That's a wonderful story, Ali. Abigail Wilson explains that in her tattoo, she has a peacock feather for Hampton Court Palace, a red rose for the Tudors, pearls for Anne with one severed, and a pocket watch with no hands for history. Rachel Treetop's tattoo is Anne Boleyn's falcon badge and her bee necklace. Lynn from Stockholm, Sweden has this beautiful Anne Boleyn portrait tattoo. Kenzie Anne chose Elizabeth I for her tattoo. And Anna Marland has gone for a Tudor Rose design. Alana Weir has 2. The first is her favourite Anne Boleyn quote, and then she also has one inspired by Natalie Dormer's Anne Boleyn in the Tudors series. And Lindsay Lee has this Anne Boleyn one, tattooed by Erica Flans of New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been so impressed by all of this Tudor-inspired ink. Clearly, Tudor history is very important to people. Thank you again to all those who shared their Tudor tattoos. It really has been wonderful to see them all. Thank you. See you soon. Take care. Bye bye.